Danielle, pleasure speaking with you today, and thank you for making the time. For those who may not be familiar, Danielle is a true multi-hyphenate in the health and media space as a celebrity trainer, fitness contributor for the Today Show, and the founder of Train Like a Gymnast, which is a holistic fitness and lifestyle brand for women. So Danielle, thank you again for joining. Today, would love to go over some of the topics that we see often brought up from our user community, and also just touch on some of the broader health trends and topics we're seeing in the social media space and kind of are anticipating will be part of the conversation with summer coming up, and workouts being top of mind. So, to start, as a former gymnast and athlete, how effective do you see gamifying daily movement through apps like WeWard being?
The effectiveness of gamifying is, I think, extremely important, and it's very effective because a lot of times just getting up and moving can be the hardest part. So if you're someone who's competitive like me, it makes it a little bit easier to motivate yourself because motivation naturally kind of dies over time. So how do you stay, committed? How do you stay consistent? And gamifying is a great way to do that, where you're, competing with yourself or competing with other people. I think it's very important and it helps kind of keep things top of mind.
Totally. And I think with gamification, the idea is also to help people build habits without kind of realizing it. Because again, if you're a competitive person, if you're used to sports, having a training schedule, it's a really nice motivator, and also a way to just kind of structure your day. And soon it's something you kind of just build into your daily routine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to make it fun at the same time.
Exactly. 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness each year. Would love to know how working out and being more active has helped with your personal journey with things like anxiety and overall stress levels.
Yeah, I have experienced some, mental struggles myself, and I feel like when I am in movement, whether, it's something that is enjoyable and equally challenging, puts me in a state of flow. And so emotions don't exist, time doesn't exist, and it's a way to kind of just get in my body and focus on one thing at a time when often we are very overwhelmed with everything that is going on in the world when we were never supposed to, take on so much stress and chaos and mental fatigue and exhaustion. Being more active is really helped me, and it's something that is easier said than done, but when you're not feeling like doing it, that's when you probably need to do something. So even something like stretching can help.
I would love to hear on a personal level, what are some kind of daily health wins that you strive to hit each day? That could be, X amount of hours of sleep or drinking X liters of water, taking a certain amount of steps. Are there any kind of items and like a mental checklist that you make sure you hit each day?
For me, my most important metric health wise is sleep. That's where I repair, that's where I heal, that's where I regain my energy. So for me, it is 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep a night. And I know I'm not a parent, so for any parents listening and watching, they're like, ha, yeah, right. But it is super, super important. A lot of times with my clients, like if their recovery is trash or they feel like, something is, not going well, a lot of times it's important to look at your sleep because it is one of the best ways to to do that protein synthesis to, allow yourself the time to recover and heal. So for me, number one is sleep. I should be better with water, but
I'm the same. I finally got a Nalgene and I'm trying to just make sure I get the intake I need. But yeah, I think sleep definitely makes sense. And it's always hard to make sure you hit those 7 to 8 hours. But yeah, I feel like it all starts with how much rest and recovery you give yourself each day. For the people that can't afford a gym membership or simply don't enjoy gym culture, or maybe it's quite intimidating for them. What are some other ways that you would recommend they stay active in their day to day?
It's making little substitutions in your day to day that can really help you stay active. Because if we think, I don't know, a couple hundred years ago, it wasn't like we all had gym memberships to stay active. We were doing just kind of naturally in our lives, and even in the past century, if you look back at photos, a lot of people just were eating better, were doing more, were more active in general. So, if you're not about that gym life, like I personally, I prefer flipping, stretching, handstanding, doing kind of my gymnastics based conditioning versus just doing sets and reps in a gym. So I'm right there with you. And it could be parking farther away at the grocery store. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator or escalator. It could be, forcing yourself to take a lunch break walk, or, around the office or around your block, whatever it may be. Just making those tiny little adjustments just to stay more active.
Those are great. And yeah, you touched on the next question I had already, which was just some easy lifestyle swaps that people can make to feel good during the summer, because obviously you want to make sure you're enjoying yourself, but in moderation. So I love the idea of just switching out walks, if, otherwise you'd maybe take transportation. Is there anything just like diet wise that you might recommend in terms of like moderating what you're drinking and eating?
What I typically recommend to clients is, all right, if you're going to go out for drinks, try to go for the drinks that have less calories in them. And then also in between drinks, try to have a glass of water. You're going to feel fuller a lot faster, which I know you're like, whatever. But I have some clients who, or they're in the beginning phases of trying to hide that they're pregnant or whatever. So it's like you could easily just have water and then ask for like a lime with it so it looks like something else. I've never had alcohol in my life. So, it's also, I say simple to say like, no, I don't drink. And usually people get bored and just, okay, cool, whatever. So don't feel like you have to if you feel forced or pressured to drink when you don't really want to and you don't want to deal with it. Like it's fine. It's also becoming more of a thing. I feel like with Gen Z, they're not drinking as much as millennials and Gen Xers. But just pacing yourself. And then if you're out at a restaurant, go for grilled over fried. And then make sure protein takes up a little bit more of your plate than carbs.
Those are great recommendations. And yes, that's definitely the narrative I've been hearing in terms of people looking for alternatives to alcohol or just foregoing those drinks altogether. So I would love to focus on walking specifically, just given what the WeWard app does, and our focus on helping people increase their daily step count. What are some easy ways that people can kind of spice up their walk? I know rucking is something that's kind of trending online, adding weights to the walks. There's incline, walking backwards, intervals. Are there any recommendations you might have to increase the intensity of a daily walk?
Yeah, my client Melissa, she actually put on ankle weights as she was taking her dogs for a walk, and she was like, "Whoa, made a difference." So you can do wrist weights, you could do ankle weights. I'm always a fan of intervals just because of my gymnastics circuit training background.
Mhm.
So and also like being an iFit treadmill coach, it's like I do a lot of interval training. So if you are walking kind of at like a leisurely pace, push yourself for 30 seconds or for 60 seconds, a little bit faster. Swing your arms, keep your core tight, and then pull back. You don't necessarily need to do backwards or side walking outside like a weirdo, but maybe, if you don't care, you don't care. If you're on a treadmill or something, then play around with different directions. You don't only have to walk forwards on a treadmill. So I recommend just finding ways to challenge. Maybe if you're hiking, you can, and there's an incline coming up, maybe you squat down and like you're in a squat hold the entire time you're walking up, forwards, sideways, or backwards. There are always ways to spice it up. Like get creative, have fun with it. And if someone sees it, maybe they're like, oh, that's interesting. Why are you doing that? And then tell them.
That's great. Very creative approach to walking. And I love the fact that you don't necessarily need any equipment with you either. It's more about posture and movement, and intervals. So those are great tips. What is a walking challenge that you would set for someone who is looking to specifically lose weight?
Yeah, I was going to say the challenge would be more so for someone to create consistency in their day. Like, how can you be consistent? Maybe it's for an entire month. Maybe you walk a mile a day. I keep feeling weird saying the word walk because I take my cat on walks. And anytime she hears that word, it's like, so I think if you can walk a mile a day, or if it is a 10,000 steps, which I personally find very hard living in Los Angeles, but when I'm in New York, easy peasy. So I think it very much depends on where you are. So, it doesn't have to be that 10,000. It can be 5,000. It can be, you know, doing lunge walks to your kitchen, or every time you have to go to the bathroom, walking on releve, which is tippy toes, like finding creative ways to get yourself walking in different ways each day consistently. Once you do it consistently, then it becomes a habit and it becomes part of your lifestyle.
And how effective is walking really for burning fat? Like, what is the most important thing to maintain in a walking routine to make sure that you're, actually hitting your goals and losing weight?
Well, if you think about it, kind of like we were saying, I would say even thousands of years ago now, we walked, we migrated, we hunted and gathered. So that was what we were doing. So the consistency part, and I'll sound like a broken record here, but the consistency part is most important. If one week go on a 10-mile hike and then you do nothing for the next month, like that's not going to do it for you. So instead of yo-yoing, just staying consistent and walking consistently as a part of your lifestyle is going to help you burn fat, because your body is going to adapt over time and learn that it needs to use fat for energy, because walking is a cardio modality, whatever you want to call it. So you're practicing your breathing, you're eating healthy fats, and you're training your body how to burn fat while you walk. And make sure it's, you can do the talk test, and whether you're walking with someone or kind of pretending you're on the phone, talking and seeing if you kind of are out of breath. And if you're not, then challenge yourself a little bit more.
It's a long-term game.
We don't
Versus
like to hear that.
what is one lie that the fitness industry has sold us that you wish you could kind of erase or clarify?
Spot training, or like spot burning fat, like, oh, do a bunch of ab exercises to get abs. That's not how it works. And I think a lot of people still believe that. Those who are kind of like in the fitness space, and that is what we do, we all know this. But for those who, that's not their life, they're maybe a lawyer, an accountant, like that's their life. Like, I don't know what's going on over there. And maybe they heard something a long time ago, and maybe not even that long ago, like 10 to 20 years ago, that you can do this for your arms and that's going to give you tone and definition. It's not. What actually gives you definition is having the muscle underneath, but then burning that fat and having a lower body fat percentage. So a lot of it is just kind of wanting a muscular, strong physique. And that doesn't mean big and bulky. That just means having muscle to show under your skin. So you cannot spot reduce, you cannot spot train. Your body will lose the fat wherever it wants to in the order it wants to. So you just need to make sure that you're focusing on body fat percentage, not the number on the scale.
Very helpful. As you were saying that, I was thinking of all of the videos I've seen about like getting toned arms, like you were saying, or getting a snatch waist,
Yep.
especially in the summer. So definitely a good reminder to all that it has to be holistic change. If you could give your teenage self one fitness truth, what would it be?
It's so hard because I was a competitive gymnast and I let my talent carry me as far as it could. And then when things got hard, I like to back off. So, and then now I'm the one like teaching conditioning and everything. So I would tell myself, like, it's okay to be uncomfortable when you push yourself outside of that comfort zone or things are really hard and you're like, why am I doing this? It's to get you where you're wanting to be. I had goals of being, in college gymnastics, or I was in Junior Olympics, but I knew that that wasn't a realistic goal after a certain point. And so in conditioning or training, when I had to do X more, or I got the team X more, that was to get me stronger so that I could do collegiate gymnastics. It wasn't just a punishment. It wasn't just to make my muscles burn and my knees and tendinitis flare up. Like, it was for a purpose, even if I didn't understand that purpose.
I love that. And yeah, the whole thing about discomfort being progress is definitely a thing, I think, for anyone starting their health journey, and pushing themselves maybe to go to the gym or to lose weight. It's not always going to be comfortable.
Humans naturally avoid discomfort.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing something that is not enjoyable, you're going to have a lot of resistance to it and you're not going to do it. So with fitness and movement, you've got to find something that you like, because then you're going to do more of it, and that's what's going to help you with the consistency. So don't force something or some activity that you're not a fan of.
There's a lot of chatter about skinny talk and the skinny talk revival, online. Is there any comments or perspective you have around that, just as people and users consume a lot of that content and are maybe facing a lot of mixed guidance around weight loss specifically?
So I was surprised to hear that this is coming back, or a thing, because I felt like we've made so much progress. So yeah, skinny talk actually irritates me. To understand what it means to be skinny will help you make the right choice. Every decade, you lose muscle mass, right? And if you don't have a lot of muscle mass to start off with, the less you have as you age, okay, if you're thinking of quality of life, it's really, really hard to build more muscle mass in your 50s, 60s, 70s. So if you're already starting off with just trying to be skinny and not have a lot of muscle, you're going to lose your independence as you age. You could develop osteoporosis, right? If you have a fall, you could break your hip, and that's usually a very bad thing for elderly that causes a bunch of other things. So you're just thinking about right now trying to be skinny. You're not thinking about how this is going to affect you for the rest of your life. So that's why it's so much more important to build that bone density, build the strong muscles around your bones and joints that can help protect you. So when you see the skinny talk stuff, it's possible to be lean and thin, but skinny is not the way to do it. You want to be strong and lean.
I love the focus you're placing on, again, it coming down to building muscle and thinking about the long-term game, because I feel like I don't see a lot of commenting on thinking about how this is going to affect you in decades to come. It also reminds me of a recent conversation I had with some friends where we talked about how when we were younger, we were so obsessed with tanning and being in the sun, and we weren't really thinking about how our skin was going to be and how, that might affect us in the long term. And now that we're aging and getting a bit older, we're obsessed with making sure we put sunscreen on. So, along a similar vein, and maybe it's because, again, we're hitting closer to that age where we have to think about that,
Yeah.
really making sure that we're setting ourselves up for success, in the long term, because those will be very visible, when you compare people who prioritize that and those who didn't.
And definitely for those in your 20s, right? You're like, oh, that's so, I'll be fine, whatever. The 20s is the time to build, because that's the easiest time to build that muscle mass. And if you're like, yeah, look at your family. Do you have any grandparents? Do you have parents who are starting to age? Are you noticing that their independence is starting to decline? Look at people's posture. All of that is directly correlated to what you are doing right now. So
Yeah.
start to be observant, start to be aware, and make the choices that are going to help you with this one body that you have.
Yeah, we actually just spoke to a cardiologist as part of this series a few weeks back, and he works with a lot of elderly patients, and he was saying exactly what you're saying, where it is very apparent to him the people that prioritize their fitness or even just things like walking regularly,
Right.
they still have their independence. They aren't dealing with things like arthritis, heart problems, and it really just starts with things as simple as walking in their daily life. Okay, great. Those were all of our questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.